Hello, everybody, and welcome along to the Event Industry News podcast with me, James Dixon, wishing you all a very good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever or wherever you join today's podcast from. I am back in the home studio, sat at the piano at home in Yorkshire, after being out on the road last week with the Event Industry News team. For context, we're recording this on Tuesday, the 2nd of December. Not entirely sure when this episode that we're going to record today is going to drop. It might actually be before the stuff that we did on the road last week, but I'm going to give a shout out anyway. We're at the Allianz Stadium last week. Many people will know it as Twickenham, the home of English Rugby Union, and we were hosted by the team at the Allianz Stadium there. We recorded some episodes of the podcast. We launched the new conference and meetings buyer's guide, and had a great day down there. So thanks to all the team down there that facilitated that and made it happen. And episodes of the podcast that were recorded down there will appear very soon, if not that they're already out there, so do have a look around. But on with today's recording, and on today's episode we're very much diving back into the world of trade shows. My guest today is going to talk to us about a significant new development within their organisation, and it's an organisation that I'm sure that everybody, if not the vast majority of our podcast listeners, will be familiar with. My guest today is Penny Banks. Penny is the creative director at GES and joins the podcast today to talk to us about something that was officially launched, I think, just over a month ago. GES unveiled Show Ready the Edit, elevated design crafted for circularity. This is a new iteration of their Show Ready product. Penny, first of all, a warm welcome to the podcast. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And thanks. We're up and at 'em this morning. It's a relatively early recording. We've not really given anybody a chance to sort of really sort of digest their morning emails or even a cup of coffee. I think we're both still on our first half full cup of coffee of the morning. But yeah, Penny, a warm welcome and Show Ready. As I said, let's give some context first of all. We're here today on the podcast to talk about this new iteration, Show Ready the Edit, a new offering within Show Ready. But let's take a step back first of all and explain to people who are tuning into the podcast today what Show Ready is if they've not come across it before.
Okay, so Show Ready was a product that GES launched some years ago, and it was an option for exhibitors that wanted a sort of upgrade from a shell scheme stand, or for companies that didn't want to go down a bespoke build route. So we came up with there's quite a lot of different options that you can go for, sort of various different stand designs, all come with fully branded graphics, integrated lighting, integrated storage facilities. You can have illuminated panels. There's all kinds of options there, and the idea with it is that it comes at a per square meter price. So it's very, very simple for an exhibitor to work out how much their stand's going to cost them. They arrive, they have a fully branded beautiful looking stand. So it's been a really great product. It's been really well received, and it's done very well. But what we were thinking is that there is a bit of a sweet spot between the sort of 30 to 50 square meters. So Show Ready, and we're calling it now Show Ready the Originals, sort of very much fits that little bracket of the exhibitor that wants to take the step up into having a bit more of a bespoke looking stand, but doesn't want to go down the route of the very costly and not particularly environmentally friendly bespoke build.
Yeah, absolutely. And historically we've all seen the sort of what we call traditional shell scheme, back in the day, and it was, if we're being honest, it was efficient in some respects. You could build walls, you could build structures very easily, but it was a bit bland. From a construction point of view, it required tools, it required a lot of sort of manual labor in order to put it together. And from a display point of view, a visual point of view, in order to brand it, that sort of traditional shell scheme was not necessarily difficult, but the effects weren't fabulous. Show Ready really represented a huge leap, didn't it? It was a real sort of paradigm shift in how you could deliver structures on an efficient level, but a level that really allowed a level of visual detail to be added to it by each individual exhibitor.
Absolutely, and that beautiful seamless finish that you get from the fabric graphics. That's something I think that when you look at a shell scheme stand and you've got the meter by meter panels, it's a bit clunky, and so
Mm.
this sort of really does elevate the exhibitor to that next level.
And of course, options like this, it also reduces, I suppose, the obvious gap between what we used to, call shell scheme exhibitors and space onlys.
Exactly.
It almost felt like the poor younger brother, didn't it? Exhibitors who couldn't quite afford a space only, couldn't afford a custom build. Oh well, we'll just have some shell scheme, we'll arrive with some pull up banners. And for trade shows as well as the actual exhibitors themselves, there was always an obvious divide, wasn't there, visually when you walked to show floor, and that divide is noticeably, it's a much grayer area now, isn't it, between
Yeah, yeah.
it's really brought a lot more synergy to show floors.
Absolutely, absolutely, and also giving the exhibitors that opportunity to really bring their brand to life. If you have a shell scheme stand, yes, you can have your pop-up banners and all the rest of it, but actually to have a fully graphicked stand, which really concentrates on the brand that it's representing, is quite a big step up from
Mm.
those traditional shell scheme stands.
And if we sort of dive into just maybe sort of the operational side of things, from a construction point of view, when you're going in, when the GES team are going in to actually um, build these shows for clients, it's much easier to deploy, isn't it? That the whole system, you're not just the new one, but the is show ready, the first iteration. That one of the main points was that it's much easier, isn't it, to construct, much quicker, much more efficient. You can have shows up in one day that might have taken 2 days to actually build those old-fashioned shell schemes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's a far more efficient system.
Now we're going to do something that we don't usually or often do on the podcast. Is I'm going to throw a picture up there. A lot of people, or most of our podcast followers, will be listening to us on a podcast platform, and I always say at the end of the episodes to make sure that you go over to Event Industry News and check out the video versions. And it's going to be very very relevant today because we're going to just put a photo onto the screen now on the video, and you'll be able to see sort of firsthand what we mean by this sort of this new iteration of show ready the edit. There are four what we're calling them options, Penny, it's sort of branded sort of
Designs.
designs,
Yeah.
four
Yeah.
distinct
It's
design
design led.
styles. And as soon as we put them on the screen, which we're going to do now, you'll see that of these four iterations, there's what we've got: Khan, Luter, Vico, and is that Row?
Row. Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. These are options that exhibitors can now book with GES. That the first word I used to describe was they look like bespoke builds, don't they, Penny? That they look, that the style of which, 10, 15 years ago, you'd have needed a bespoke build to deliver this.
Absolutely, and that was the thinking behind the edit. So we obviously have Show Ready the Originals, which has been hugely popular, and it really fits in a certain level of space. But that 30 to sort of 50 square meter sweet spot, where people are sort of, they're wanting that much more of a presence on the show floor. They want something that looks bespoke, but they don't quite want the bespoke price. That was what we started to look at with the edit, and the edit was very much born out of, and that's why I say it's a curated selection. There's four
Mm.
designs, and each one has really been considered in terms of what it can offer to an exhibitor. So we did quite a lot of research. We talked to lots of people about the things that they might need on an exhibition stand. Meeting spaces was one sort of really prominent thing that people were asking for. So the Vico has a private meeting space at the center of the stand. It's really designed for an island site, but you can equally you can have a back wall in there as well. But you've got this lovely private meeting space, and with all four designs, the materials have been a really important part of the whole design journey that we've had. So it's the edit is very much based on the same principles as Show Ready the originals, that we're using a modular system, but we've really considered all the materials that go into each of the designs. So we've used things that are not necessarily just recycled. We've used interesting materials. We've used things that can be reused. So there's very much circular design principles that have been applied to each of the designs that we've worked on. I mean, I think it would be quite nice to just talk about each design individually.
Well, absolutely. Well, you've already flagged up something there that is worth sort of pursuing a little bit further today, which is that you mentioned that Vico is designed, maybe not primarily for, but with an island sort of stand in mind, which
yeah.
straight away I'm interested in the fact that it's obvious then when I look at the photos that, each one, can be deployed in certain, in maybe different ways. You've got row with a back wall. The Luter and the Khan have the images that we're looking at have clearly got two walls, so corner stands. So there's clearly been an element of that been put
Yeah.
into the design process, hasn't there?
Yeah. And I mean, each one can be configured in different ways, and we have thought about that as well. But yes, we're with specifically for that 30 to 50 square meter space. Historically, you're not really going to have three sides. You're not going to have one open side, are you? So yeah, there's either two walls, one wall, or no wall, and each kind of has its own merits. So Khan is very much designed towards a product-led exhibitor. You've got lots and lots of product display there, all beautifully illuminated, and also the ability to have a screen. What we've tried to do with all the designs, we've pared back, these are our suggestions of how an exhibitor can have the graphics on each of the stands, but rather than covering every inch of the walls with images or messaging, we've pared that back a bit, which I think gives it a much more bespoke look. We've also been quite careful with the colours that we've chosen. So I am a designer, and so I'm really interested in trends and in particular colour and things that are happening. So what we've tried to do is come up with some very neutral colour palettes that would work with most branding, and we'll introduce new colours each year. So they'll almost be like, the GES colour of the year. These are suggestions. They're not things that we're saying to exhibitors, these are the only colours that are available, but to give people, more of an understanding that if their exhibition stand is more considered and the design element has been thought about right from the start, they have much more of an interesting presence on the show floor. It's their opportunity to shine and make their brand come to life. So it's that sort of, that structure to help them, to give them that blank canvas to bring their brand to life.
So one thing I noticed, Penny, on the floor of each image, and again, it might sound trivial in the scheme of all of the work that's gone into designing this system, but there's illuminated, looks like LED sort of strips or something that's around the edge of the false floor. Is that optional, or is that something that is included by default?
That is something I think will be included. I think there's a few things to iron out at the moment, because this is obviously it's a launch product, and we're sort of finding just we've been prototyping things, but the flooring was something that we really wanted to look at, because rather than just offering a carpeted floor, we wanted to offer the option of being able to have sort of cable management integrated. So this flooring system is quite a clever flooring system, and it has an integrated cable management tile underneath the actual flooring tile, so you don't get any wires or anything. So very clever. And then it has the strip that goes around the outside, takes an LED, so you can have that illuminated edge all the way around the outside.
Right.
and how we're offering it is we've got 4 different options, which are all, give you a nice blank canvas. So you've got a wood effect, you've got a stone effect, a marble effect, and these are all, it's a very environmentally friendly flooring system. It's made from recycled plastic, and it ticked the sustainability box, which was really, really important for us with all of the elements that we've included in the edit.
Because we still see a lot of timber used, don't we, in bespoke stand construction. There's
Yeah,
an awful lot,
so
whether it be
much.
false floors or building, set flats, that there's an
Yeah,
awful lot of timber. And I know that uh, people will argue that, well, timber is a sustainable product because it can be reused. It's a natural product and all the rest of it. But if we're being brutally honest, how much of it comes up off the show floor at the end of a show and
exactly.
gets dealt with properly? We've all seen what it's like during the out of a show. Everybody just wants to get it ripped up, packed up as quickly as possible and get out. So having something, I suppose, that's structured, that it almost feels like a really, really well designed Lego set, something that could be put down quickly, deployed in any number of different ways, picked up, put back in a box, and taken off to the next place.
Yeah, and that was, the big thinking behind the edit was that the sustainability was a key element of the whole design process. It was vitally important to me. Now we have so many materials available to us, there is no need for endless truckloads of waste leaving a
Yeah.
show floor.
Yeah.
Absolutely no need for it at all. And so this is what we wanted to do with the edit, was to show exhibitors, actually, look, here is a way of having a beautiful stand that looks like it's a bespoke build, but there is no waste really that comes away from that stand. I mean, the graphics are all recycled, and we're looking at ways of even with that finding a way of using a material that has already been recycled, and then it is recycled again back into another fabric. The reception desks that were constructed, we constructed them in a material that is made from recycled paper. And again, it's completely circular. It can be recycled again back into sheet material. So every element has been really considered with the sustainability at its key. That was the most important part of the design process for us.
Does that, you mentioned earlier about sort of some of the color schemes that you're presenting with these, these initial visuals,
Yeah.
and how it's almost sort of very, it's pared back in some respects. It's not logos, branding. It's
Yeah.
base colors with some branding. It looks very, very modern. It looks very chic. Like you said, very, very design led. Does that sort of minimalist approach, I suppose, to how you're presenting the graphics, does that have any impact on the sustainability element at all? Does it help if you are printing, if something requires less print initially?
Not necessarily. I mean, whether we can look at ways of doing that in the future, and this is a project that is going to evolve over time. Like, just because we've launched the edit as it is, it doesn't mean that's it, and we're not developing it further. We will always be looking for new materials and new ways of introducing more sustainability into the design. The reason for the pared back graphics is to show an exhibitor sometimes less is more, and you don't need to absolutely cover every inch with a message. Sometimes you might want a whole wall that's one image, and that's fine, but with messaging and things like that, to pare things back a little bit gives you actually a bit more of an impact. But one thing that I really want to emphasize with all 4 designs, they are there as a blank canvas. So it's about the
Sure.
product, it's about the exhibitor and how they can then turn that into their own space. So, the suggestions we're giving are suggestions. They're not this is what you have to have, but hopefully from how we've illustrated and how we've demonstrated what something can look like, it gives people a bit of inspiration. And adding things in like the the changing color palette each year
Yeah.
helps people to understand what's current in interiors, what's current in color trends. And I don't think that really very many people have been given that opportunity before, so it's quite a nice little added extra. They get a little bonus from me of what the coming trends are.
What's the timeline for it from where we speak today? Early December 2025. What is the timeline in terms of seeing it, in the wild, if we could say
Well,
that?
it's launched, so the sales team are busy working on sales as we speak. I believe that there's a number of exhibitors that are very, very interested in it. So I think that we should start seeing things on the show floor sort of like early in the new year.
And is the intention that that this will be paired with other types of stand build that you deliver, or is the hope that ultimately you can kind of utilize one system for one particular show? I've seen examples of that, sort of delivered, and examples of almost I don't know if you could call it a hybrid element, but where there's various different types of traditional shell and like the B matrix stuff, the amp modular, the sort of show
Yeah.
ready. What's the intention with it?
So the intention is, obviously the edit sits within the show ready family,
Mhm.
and we have show ready the originals. There's also an enhanced version of show ready where exhibitors can make something a bit more bespoke. So if they want special lighting, or they want a certain type of configuration, and then the edit sits within that family. So I think that's the way that we're going to be marketing it, that it's the upgrade from the shell scheme, but you've got these 3 layers or these 3 tiers, which should suit most exhibitors really.
And by the sounds of things, can ultimately all be integrated together fairly
Absolutely.
seamlessly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Abs- Fantastic. And developments like this is not just good for exhibitors, but for show operations as well. If GES are taking on more of the build because of options like this being made available to exhibitors, it means exhibitors are not having to rely as much on stand builders. But also, particularly, I'm thinking that when it comes to traditional shell scheme, you've not got exhibitors traipsing in with the coffins on wheels with their own pull-up banners, their own graphics and things like that. So
Yeah.
from a show operations and during that really critical build period as well, developments like this from organizations like GES are ultimately serving a huge benefit, aren't they, to the operations of the
Yeah,
organizers?
of course. Yeah, so it simplifies that whole build process, and also for the exhibitors, if they were going down a bespoke build project, they may have to deal with several different contractors. With this option, it's a kind of one-stop shop for them, so it makes it a much less painless experience of just having that one point of contact.
No, absolutely. And we should point out that, if you want to read in further detail about this, everything that we've referred to on today's podcast is very much available, online. I think we're going to put the link up on screen. Yeah, it's insights.ges.com/news. Insights.ges.com/news. If you go there, that's kind of the global news page and information for GES, and it's the headline story at the moment, so you can read in further detail about everything that we've spoken about today, see those images that we've referred to. So yeah, once again, if you've been listening to this podcast today, thanks very much. But head over, go to that URL, and go to eventindustrienews.com as well, and you'll be able to see images of everything that we've been referring to today. It's a genuinely exciting development. I've worked with GES and see GES in action at the Event Tech Live show for the last few years since we moved to Excel from the old Truman Brewery, and I've seen just how quickly and easily deployed systems like this are, just how great they look when you've got the graphics on there. It makes a huge difference to the presentability of the show floor, and it adds so many different efficiencies on an operational level that I've kind of witnessed firsthand. So yeah, congratulations to you and the team, Penny, on another product coming to market, and something that no doubt is going to have a big impact in the coming months and years. And as I said, head over to that link. I'll put it up on the screen one more time: insights.ges.com/news to read more about Show Ready the Edit. Before we wrap up today's episode, I'm just going to give a couple of little mentions for some stuff going on eventindustrynews.com. We've recently launched the conference and meetings guide for 2026. That is available now as a digital supplement on eventindustrynews.com. So if you head over to the website, that's now available to download, along with all of the other special features and supplements that have been published and delivered this year by the Event Industry News team. You can also check out the A to Z supplier directory. If you are working in the industry and you're looking for a product or a service for your event, the chances are you will find it listed within the A to Z supplier directory on eventindustrynews.com, where you can also find video versions of all of our podcasts, which I've mentioned a couple of times already, but always worth another mention. Of course, let's not forget that you may have started your journey on the website today, and that's where you watch the podcast. If you've done that, brilliant. Thank you very much for watching and tuning in. But please do remember to go in the opposite direction and make sure that you like and subscribe to the podcast on your audio platform, whatever that may be, Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We're available across all of those major platforms. So yes, thank you very much to everybody, and thank you very much today to my guest, Penny Banks, the creative director at GES, for joining us and talking to us about this exciting development and the launch of Show Ready the Edit. Penny, thank you very much for joining us. We've had a couple of technical glitches, but I'd like to point out that they are nothing to do with my guest today. They are fully self-inflicted on my part. So if there's any glitches or funny edits in today's episode, I'm going to take full responsibility now for it. Penny, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. And we will see you all on the next edition of the podcast. Thanks very much, everybody. Goodbye.